for joining my presentation. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So today I will present how to use Dynamic DNS service in EGI Cloud. So the motivation of using the service is that VM in EGI Cloud are usually accessed only via IP addresses. But if user want to deploy some service in the cloud, you often need some SSI certificate for security, need some user-friendly name for accessing, and you would like to high complexity of the cloud. So that's the reason why I have developed the Dynamic DNS service for addressing these issues. So with the Dynamic DNS service, you can register sensible memorable hostname in some supported domain like my-server.vo.fedcloud.eu or something like that. After registration, user can attach the hostname to any host, even local host or a VM in cloud. And after attachment, so they can access services deployed on your VM or on your host via your hostname. On the processes in full automation and shared service, it means that you do not to worry anything. You do not to contact some support from admin, from site admin or cloud provider. Everything is immediately available and easy to use. Your service is also independent and standalone. It means that we do not need any additional software installation, any additional support from cloud provider or site admin. Everything is Christian service. User can use partition, deploy, and register hostname and attach hostname to any VM. So it's a service architecture. The central point of the service is a NS updater server. It's responsible for register hostname and assign updated IP addresses to your hostname. User can log in to the NS updater server via web browser. They will be authenticated via EGI check-in. Also, via some API for updating IP addresses, it can contact to your NS updater server. When IP updated, when you update the DNS record to primary DNS server, is located in ISS, Slovakia, and within what secondary DNS server and NIP, Portugal, and NS updater server will verify if the service update DNS record correctly. So because we have a two DNS server located in different locations, so we can guarantee some high availability. It means that if one server is down, second server is still working, and user can access the service without any abruption. We strictly following existing standard for communication between components. It means that we use OADC authentication for authenticate via EGI check-in. We use Dynamic DNS 2 protocol. It's for command line client updater, and we use NFC 2136 standard for connecting with DNS server. On relationship many-to-many, it means that we can use multiple OpenID identity provider at the same NS data server We can use multiple DNS server for same NS update server and vice versa. It means that we are freely to extend the service to additional identity provider, additional DNS domain, and additional DNS server. So it's easy to extend it. If you want to use the service, it's very simple. From the view of user, there are only two steps. The first step is to register a hostname via the web portal at this address. Yeah, simple GUI portal, you can register hostname. After register hostname, you can assign an IP address to your hostname. It means virtually you can attach your hostname to your server with IP address. After that, you can access your server via hostname instead of IP address. So your service so complicated, but the usage is very simple. So hostname registration, as I said before, is via portal at this location. Is you will need EGI check-in account for authentication. Yeah, after that, login, you can register the hostname. Yeah, two domain are supported: fedcloud.eu and fedcloud.eocsynergy.eu. If you want to have some domain and you want to add it to the service, I can provide support to add some additional domain or create some new subdomain for user. It means that some VO has special subdomain for their VO. After registering hostname, you can assign IP address to hostname. You can use either Google portal or via API provided by the service. At the moment, we do not have any limitation in IP addresses. It means that you can use any IP range from anywhere. You can use it also including the private IP addresses in your local network or some local server before you move it to the cloud. Your IP assessment do not require any credential. It's just so it's safely to use in the cloud because you do not store any your private token certificate in the VM in the cloud. The time to leave of DNS record is set to 60 seconds, it means 1 minute. Uh, it means that if the client connect to a server, when you will ask for the DNS server for the record, and they can cache the DNS record for 60 seconds. If you want to refresh the chain immediately, you simply have to flash the DNS cache on the client, and then it will refresh with new IP addresses. So I can switch to live demo, so it's easier to understand and it's easier to see how the service works. So it's NS update graphical portal. You can see my browser now.
Yes, Viet, we can see.
Okay. So when you first open the URL, so you see it's my local IP addresses is on my laptop, and you have to log in. You can have a local account only for administration, but you should use a EGI account via EGI check-in. So if you click to the EGI account, you can forward to EGI check-in. You can see, and I log it to the EGI check-in, and now I have login. So you can see it's my ID in EGI check-in. We have some new menu. So you click on overview. overview. Here is some host name. I have a register. I can register new host. I let's say webinar. And you choose which domain you want to use. I use VM .fedcloud.eu. Here, some other domain I have created for Worksica in EOC Synergy, Westfly, and some other. So just choose VM FedCloud. I click and create. So the host is added and hot secret added. So here secrets that you will use for update the IP address of your hostname. And for convenience, yes, URL where you have to use to update hostname. The first part of the URL is the hostname that we have a register. It means webinar.vm.fedcloud.eu. And second part here is the secrets that you have here. And the other are the URL of the service. So I just select and copy who URL. So I have some virtual machine created in cloud. This one is with Ubuntu. So I just click queue and pass URL and it's on. You instead of queue, you can use any HTTP client like wget, some library, anything. Just some web client to access the URL. So you can see here now, the webinar.vm.fedcloud.eu is updated to the IP address of the virtual machine that I have see here. Now, for example, I can try to access the virtual machine via the hostname. You can see that you have some Apache default Apache server, web server installed on the Ubuntu machine. I can try to change the IP address to second virtual machine that I have created. Now I have some machine with CentOS. So I by same command, queue the URL, enter, and it's on. The IP address has changed to new IP address. You can see 232. So the old address is 237. So I just refresh the web portals. You can see how now it's updated to 232. Now I can try to access the web server again. You can see that the web server change to new machine. It's a default CentOS web file in the Apache web server. So everything is very easy to use. It's simply add host, add some host name, what you choose, testing, some domain you choose, whatever you want, you create, you get the URL here, and just pass the URL to the virtual machine, and everything will done automatically. So again, you can see with overview, I have a new host with the same IP address as the webinar. So if you have finished with your hostname, you want to delete, just simply click on delete host, and each the host will delete it, hostname will delete. Here you can manually change IP address to some new IP address via your web portal and configuration and so on. So I finish some use my demonstration here and go back to the presentation. Uh, by default, you can assign IP address to the hostname implicitly by executing the command on the target virtual machine like that I had info, q, ITPS, hostname, secrets, and net updater, .fedcloud.eu need update. But the API end up also explicit IP assessment. It means that you can explicitly give hostname and the IP address here. The explicit IP assessment is useful mainly if you want to assign IP address from some controller, some deployment script, some client machine without logging to the VM. And it can be also used for assign private IP address to the hostname. It means that you have some virtual cluster in the cloud, so only the master have a public IP address, but some worker node in the cluster have a private IP address. If you want to manage your cluster via the dynamic DNS service, you can assign private IP address to the worker node, so the master can communicate with the worker node via the hostname instead of the IP address. It's not stable, yeah. So it's very useful for managing virtual cluster via dynamic DNS service. So to summarize, why we need to use the dynamic DNS service. So you can assign to the, you can have some user-friendly, sensible, memorable service name instead of plain IP addresses that you use in cloud. You can get SSI host certificate for your host name. It means that for secure communication between client and server. As you have know your host name before deploying the server, so you can configure client and server before deployment. It means that if you have some configuration file, you can hard code the server name directly in your configuration name before deploying it to the cloud. You can migrate the service between different VM, different cloud side without changing client. Which means that I have a demonstrate before. I have a two server, and we just migrate the same service between one cloud, one server to second server. So I just change host name, and from the view of client, they do not have to change anything. You can access the same service via the same hostname without changing anything, without noticing that you have a change in location of your deployment of your service. And it might be useful if you have a complex system with several services connected together. It means that you have some web server, some database system, some other component, and you can hard code your communication, your location between different components via the hostname in the via DNS, and mainly user do not need to remember IP addresses of service. You just use hostname. It's easy to remember. It's easy to understand, and it's easy to manage. Yes, one example of usage scenario that we have done is mean that you can register hostname and assign to local servers in local office. So where I can develop, configure, test service in local server using hostname. When everything is okay, we can move the service from the local host server to the cloud and just change the hostname to the VM in the cloud, and I do not have to change anything in the configuration file because everything is stored in hostname. So do not have even notice the user end user about the change of the location of the service. The service is still in active development. It means that we are working on a new feature that is required by user. The first one and the most important one is API for registering hostname. It means that at the moment, user can register hostname only via graphical portal. But for some for integration of some automation tool, you might want to register hostname via some command via API in script. So the API is being developed for this purpose. It means that so you have some script, you define some hostname, and the hostname automatically register in the script. The second ongoing development is integration with the UBV infrastructure manager. That I have discussed with the migrant, the developer infrastructure manager. It means that via the infrastructure manager portal, you can give a hostname on the portal, and then you just when you deploy your service with infrastructure manager, you just access your service via hostname, so you can completely ignore about IP address. You do not have to know what IP addresses your service is deployed. Just you give a hostname to the infrastructure manager, then access service via hostname. And this last one that we are planning to do is IPv6 support. It means that user can access service via hostname instead of very long and complicated IPv6 addresses. It can mitigate the problem if user that are used to the IPv4 format, so it might be difficult for them to change to IPv6. So using hostname might be mitigate the problem that we have to migration to IPv6. So it's complex information. Yes, the address of graphic important. The documentation is included in the official EGI documentation portal. There is where we have a separate Giga support units with name Dynamic DNS. So if you have some requests, some suggestion for improvement, some bug report, anything, you can open ticket via Gigas, and I can respond via the Gigas. Or you can contact with me privately via my email. So any comment, any feature request, critics, bug report, everything is welcome because it would help us to improve our services. So it's a short presentation because service is really easy to use. As I have demonstrated, you can learn it in 2-3 minutes, and you can use this easily. So I finished my presentation here. Thank you for your attention, and any question, comment, please, we can discuss now.